We're going to be focusing on the top 10 loadouts as of the Snakeshot nerf update. So I'll be giving you a complete loadout with all the perks, lethals, tacticals, and all 5 of the attachments, so you can go ahead and copy these individual class setups if that's what you're looking to do. I'll also be giving you a couple different tips on how you should be utilizing these class setups and why I've chosen the specific attachments. If you enjoy the video or find it helpful in any way, please do me a favor hitting the like button. I do have a goal in today's video of 1,000 likes, and if you're brand new to the channel, or you're part of that 90% that keeps on watching my videos but forgets to subscribe, make sure you hit the red subscribe button with notifications on so you'll be able to find your way back to the channel as easy as possible. Just a heads up, the timestamps for each of the individual loadouts will be available within the description as well as in the comment section. So when it comes to loadout 10, I would reserve this one kind of as a wild card loadout, and this is one where you kind of mix and match different attachments. Maybe try something new, experiment. An example of my 10th loadout would be the Odin with the MP5 using EOD, Overkill, Amped with C4 and a heartbeat sensor. The attachments on the Odin are the VLK optic, the Odin factory 810mm barrel, the 30 round mag, the Ranger foregrip, and the Colossus suppressor. For the MP5, I'm using the stipple grip tape, the F-Tac collapsible stock. You could either use the Ranger foregrip or the Operator foregrip, 45 round mags, and the monolithic integral suppressor. And like I said, this was more of an experimental loadout, so maybe you swap out the Bison for the MP5, see how that feels. Maybe throw in an MP7 in there, maybe a Scar instead of the Odin. You can kind of just mix and match different weapons to see how they feel for you, and maybe you're going to find something new that you're actually going to put into your primary rotation of actual weapons that you use on a regular basis. So it's going to bring us to the 9th ranked loadout in my opinion. That's going to be the brand new Bruen. It actually makes it in the rotation because it's actually a pretty good LMG. It's actually a top tier rifle if you kit it the right way, and pretty much how I'm going to use it is primarily for medium to long range, so I'm going to combine that with the MP5, which is primarily going to cover my close quarters basis. And the class setup is pretty much the same that we saw earlier as far as the perks, lethal, and tactical, and those are going to be carried out through all of the loadouts, and I'm going to explain those specific perks in a little bit. But when it comes to the attachments, I'm using that VLK optic, the Ranger foregrip, the 60 round mag, the XRK Summit 26.8 inch barrel, monolithic suppressor, and then it comes to the MP5, I'm using that same class setup, stippled, F-Tac, Ranger, 45 round mag, and the monolithic integral suppressor. So when it comes to perks, you can run EOD, cold-blooded, or you can run double time in perk 1. The reason I'm running EOD is primarily because the RPG spam should be increased with the fact that the snake shots were recently nerfed. For that perk 2, I'm pretty much only going to run Overkill and Ghost. I'm going to kind of just swap it up. If I'm able to get my loadout really early in the match, maybe I go with an Overkill class setup, and then by the time the free one drops, I can go ahead and go over there and swap out to a Ghost class and pick up my weapon so I still maintain Ghost, EOD, and Amped. Then the reason I use Amped for perk 3 is for 2 different reasons. One is just the weapon swapping between LMGs and sniper rifles and RPGs. It just makes it that much faster. Then for those times that you do run an RPG, it will help with those reload times significantly. As far as the C4 goes, that's primarily the best anti-vehicle at the moment until they buff the Semtex or the Thermite. This will allow you to blow up vehicles with ease. And then the tactical is the heartbeat sensor, just because that allows you to kind of get a portable UAV with you at all times because it lasts for an unlimited amount of time. You can always mix up the tacticals with concussions or flash, especially if somebody on your team already has a heartbeat sensor. Might not necessarily be the best idea for all 4 of you to have a heartbeat sensor if you're playing in quads. So that's always something to consider and talk about with your team. So that's going to bring us to the 8th ranked loadout in my opinion, and that is going to be the Ram with the HDR combo. As far as the attachments go, on the Ram I'm using the Commando foregrip, the TAC laser, the 50 round mag, the FSS Ranger barrel, as well as the monolithic suppressor. As far as the HDR goes, I'm using Focus TAC laser, the 26.9 inch HDR Pro barrel, the thermal sniper scope, and the monolithic suppressor. And if you're not a fan of the thermal sights, you could always just leave the standard sniper scope and then get the extra attachment and put that towards more ammo or a faster aim down sight stock. So when it comes to the Ram, it's making the list because it's one of the meltiest rifles within Modern Warfare as well as Warzone. The reason why it makes it a little bit lower on the list just because it's a little bit harder for people to use. It kind of has an odd recoil. It goes up and to the left. And on top of that, it's the only 5.56 rifle that only has a 50 round mag and not a 60 or a 100. So it's kind of limited on that end. And because of that, I think it's one of the best options for solos. But when it comes to trios and quads, it kind of really depends on the player's skill level. So if you haven't given the REM 7 a try, I definitely recommend it, especially if you can hit your shots. The time to kill is faster than the M4, the Grau, the M13, and the Kilo. So the 7th ranked loadout, in my opinion, is actually going to be the MP7 with the HDR. Pretty much the class setup is everything the same that we've already talked about. But when it comes to the MP7, I'm using the 60 round mag, the Merc foregrip, the FSS close quarter stock, the monolithic suppressor, and the FSS recon barrel. And overall, the MP7 is probably the only SMG that you can actually use as a primary weapon. And the primary reason for that is because it's laser accurate even at like 100 meters, and the time to kill doesn't drop off significantly at those further ranges. And the only real downside with the MP7 is that you use SMG ammo, which the reserve for SMG ammo is only 150 in addition to whatever you have in your magazine, which doesn't really sound like a big issue. When you're comparing that to the rifle, which gets an extra 60 bullets, it ends up being pretty significant considering that the damage done by each of those individual bullets is less than you would with a rifle. So this class setup is primarily geared towards kind of a faster paced movement, since when you have an SMG, you're typically going to be more mobile than you are with a rifle or an LMG. And even though you can take people on at range, it's not always going to be in your best interest to take them on with an SMG. So that's why I've combined it with a sniper rifle to go ahead and take on people at much further ranges. And that's pretty much how I'd recommend using that individual class setup. So the 6th ranked loadout is going to include the M13 with an RPG, and you can see that I'm running Ghost. As far as the class setup goes, I'm running a 60 round mag, the Ranger foregrip, the monolithic suppressor, the VLK optic, and the Tempest marksman barrel. You can really swap out whatever optic you're comfortable with. You can use a reflex. If you like the iron sights, maybe you can put on another attachment, but this is the one I would recommend for the M13. And I actually like the M13 a lot. One of the biggest upsides for this weapon is it has an incredibly fast fire rate of over 900 rounds per minute. And to balance out the weapon's fast fire rate, they've actually decreased the damage on the M13, so it does require a couple extra shots to kill than a lot of the other 5.56 weapons. But even with that lower damage, it still has a pretty competitive time to kill because of the fire rate. So the 5th ranked loadout is actually going to combine the M13 with the MP5, and I think this is one of the better combinations. As you can see, the same attachments that we've already talked about. And the reason why this combination works so well is because the M13 is very dominant at medium to long range, whereas the MP5 can take care of that short to medium range. There's actually a couple different things that go into this one as well. As when you're actually trying to move around the map, you could always swap to the SMG, so you have that extra mobility. And then it takes just a little bit of practice getting used to which weapon you should be using in which scenarios. Obviously, if you're going to be rushing into a house or you're going up some stairway, you're probably going to want to switch over to the MP5. If you're out in the open, you spot someone on a ridge, then you're going to make sure you hit them with the M13, and that's kind of how this particular combination works. And then my 4th ranked loadout is going to be the M4 and the RPG combination. The class setup I'm using on the M4 is the GI Mini Reflex, the 60 round mag, the Merc foregrip, which could also be swapped out for the Ranger foregrip, the monolithic suppressor, and then the stock M16 Grenadier barrel. And in this particular class setup, the M4 is going to be your long range option. That's why it has an optic on there. You could swap it for another optic that you're more comfortable with if you like the thermals or whatever the case is, but primarily the class setup is built so that this is going to be your medium to long range option. Obviously you can use it up close, but the RPG could be that great alternative, or maybe you pick up another secondary along the way. And that's going to bring us to the 3rd ranked loadout on my list, and that is actually going to be the M4 with the HDR combo. The class setup slightly differs for the M4, primarily because this is going to be your short to medium range option. So I'm using the stippled grip tape, the 60 round mag, the commando foregrip, the monolithic suppressor, and that stock M16 Grenadier barrel. And that HDR class setup is a similar one that we saw earlier: focused tac laser, the 26.9 inch HDR Pro barrel, the thermal sniper scope, and the monolithic suppressor. So one thing I haven't really mentioned, but that you're going to see on all the individual weapons that are in this class setup video, is that I'm running a suppressor on pretty much every one of the weapons, because anytime you fire your weapon in Warzone, if somebody's in close proximity, I think it's around 200 meters, you're going to pop up on their minimap, regardless if they have a UAV or not, and that's going to cause you to be focused more than pretty much anyone else in the lobby. So it's always good to have a suppressor. Pretty much all the class setups that you should see within Warzone should include some kind of suppressor. And that brings us to the number 2 ranked loadout on my list, and that is going to be for the Grau with an RPG combo. The class setup for that Grau is going to be the Ranger foregrip, the tac laser, the 60 round mag, the Tempest Archangel barrel, and the monolithic suppressor. This is a very accurate class setup for the Grau. If you feel like it's a little bit slow for you, you could always swap out that Archangel barrel for the Nexus barrel, which still gives you some pretty decent range without the cost of that aim down sight and mobility. And that's going to bring us to the number 1 loadout in my opinion, and that is going to be a Grau with the MP5 combo. This is pretty much the same 2 class setups that I've included within the video. The Grau that we just talked about and the MP5 that has shown up a couple times. I know there's a lot of debate between the Grau and the M4, but the Grau ends up doing better than the M4 at medium to long range. So that's why you get this MP5 as the backup. And then you get the best of both worlds. You get the close destructive power of the MP5 up close, and then as we get into medium to long range, you're able to hit these laser accurate shots, and even at sometimes ranges where you could be sniping. So those are my current top 10 loadouts for Warzone. If you think I left a loadout off the list, make sure you go ahead and comment that down below. If you enjoyed the video, found it helpful in any way, please remember to hit that like button. Again, I do have a goal in today's video, 1,000 likes. And if you're brand new or part of that almost 90% that hasn't yet subscribed, you made it to this point in the video, make sure you hit the red subscribe button with notifications on so you'll be able to find your way back to the channel as easy as possible. We appreciate all the support on the content and the channel. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.